you've said you're initially on a 1-year contract, and obviously you've got your sights on making an impression, so you can obviously still be there for the Olympics. So that does come around, and you obviously go to the Olympics. So again, there's not going to be many people working in sport that get that opportunity. So obviously, I'm sure that was an amazing experience. So can you just describe a little bit about that, and obviously how it was going there, and obviously winning gold as well?
Yeah, I mean, even now, like, I know how lucky I was to experience that, because not many people do. We have an awful lot of analysts that work across Olympic and Paralympic sports with the IS, and not all of them get to go and support their athletes. So definitely incredibly lucky. I think it's interesting because you see the Olympics as it should be, as like the absolute pinnacle, which was exactly like it was for me. But if I'm honest, when I first arrived at the village, it was a little bit of an anticlimax, because the village wasn't quite finished. I didn't have hot water for a week. Like, it kind of wasn't the glam that I expected it to be. The video tower failed its safety check the morning of the games. So we kind of were like, we need to go. So we basically went on there when it probably wasn't safe to do so. So like, there were a lot of bits initially that you just don't expect, because you expect it obviously to be plain sailing. But as we all know, with analysis and sport, it never is. But if I'm honest, we deliberately for that tournament, and we do for every major tournament, we deliberately almost try and sit in our own bubble. We don't change any processes that we've rehearsed at every other tournament. Like, nothing significant changes just because it's an Olympics. They're refined processes that we've deliberately practiced. And as such, one of the things that we don't do is we don't go on social media, staff and athletes, for the whole thing. So you allow yourself to sit in a bit of a bubble. And that's essentially what I did. It wasn't until I kind of got back and processed that I was like, kind of then all the emotion kind of comes with what winning a gold really means. But there were definitely a couple of things that I did. So because I wasn't sure I'd ever do an Olympics again, I was, you're lucky to do it once, let alone do it more than that. So in true analyst fashion, I actually monitored myself every day on lots of different things and rated myself for lots of different things, because I was like, if I can share with other people who might be going to an Olympics what that might have looked like, that would have been really useful to me. And actually that process really showed me some things that I just never expected would be something I'd need to think about. So a couple of examples are like just the actual emotion of other people, because you're all of a sudden now there's lots going on. You're stuck in a lift with Tom Daly going up to your room. It's a really different environment. You've got people coming back that have just missed out from a medal. It obviously that there's a lot of emotion. In Rio, our men's squad didn't do as well as the women. And for me, I found that really challenging, because my counterpart that worked for the men's squad obviously was really disappointed. So there's a lot of things that go on that I just never thought would be something that you might have to process, or something that might affect you. And just the sheer amount of work that you do and the lack of sleep you get and things like that. Obviously, they always surprise you, despite the fact you think you're expecting them.
So was it you and one other then, analyst-wise, that went over there with the teams?
Yeah, so I supported the women, and my boss at the time, amazing analyst, Ali Patterson, was the men's analyst at the time. So we pretty much in that we operated as in just working within that gender. So yeah, supported those teams.
So then what does, obviously you've mentioned there, like there's a lot of work with a tournament like that. You're probably working a lot more than you're not working. So what does it look like? Because again, it was a bit eye-opening, because we had a little bit to do, as you know, with the Commonwealth this year. And so you're literally coding every single game that because you could come up against that particular opponent. So I'm presuming it's very full on. You're doing a lot of coding. Like you said, there's not that much, if you want the data, you've got to collect it yourself. So what did it look like for you, kind of day in, day out during the actual Olympics?
So we had anywhere between 6 or 8 games a day and across 2 pitches. So that was probably the biggest. That was the biggest challenge, in the sense that you kind of had to make a POW with one of the opposition. which in hockey is really, really usual because you spend more time with those analysts than you do your own team.
Yeah.
So you develop really good relationships with them. So for Rio, I teamed up with the Spanish analyst, Andrew Wilson, who's also one of my good friends now. So he was on one pitch whilst I was on the other. So we did footage swaps, but essentially I'd code live and film live anywhere between 4 or 6 games a day, back to back, then get the footage off the other pitch and prioritize once I got back which ones I needed to make sure were covered in case we met them in the pool stages, which again was another blind side that I didn't see because we actually ended up facing Spain in the knockout rounds and we knocked them out. So kind of knocked my mate out, which was obviously great, but also not so nice for him. But so basically you try and cover as many games as possible and turn them around as quickly as possible, because like the Olympics, for example, we played 8 games in 13 days. So you literally you'll play back to back, day off, back to back. So it's not just you reviewing like us, it's also getting what we need from the opposition to allow the coaches and athletes to see it within enough of a time frame to influence on the fact we're going to play the next day.